This is Channel Attitude. Your voice, your right, your freedom.
What's up, everybody? It's your golden girl, Goldie. I just love being a part of the brand. I love being a part of Vince Russo's world, and I love all of you. It's just so wonderful to have gotten to know so many of you through the brand, through Russo's podcasting, and just everything. King of podcasting, Channel Attitude. So if you haven't heard yet, Vince has a really great deal running with Aura, AURA.com, Aura.com. It's a month free. You have absolutely, I'd say nothing to lose, but you do by not joining. It's funny, we've got a podcast coming up, and it's coming up in the future with Eric Watts, and his daughter is going into cybersecurity. Like, that's what she's going to school for. And he's got some really great golden nuggets to give you right straight from the horse's mouth. But I will say that every ounce of protection that you can get these days is just key. It's just everywhere you turn, some jabroni, I can't even tell you. Do you know that my dad actually had somebody steal his identity and is filing for unemployment and welfare and a bunch of other things using his name and address? It's just like, and they live down the street. And I want to show up on a plane and just beat the shit out of these people for taking advantage of an old person. And I know a lot of you listening, you're not old, but you put your information out there. You know, we enter it all the time, everywhere you go. Social, credit card number information. We have things online that we exchange on social media. Protect yourself. Why wouldn't you give this a shot? Aura.com/Vince. Aura.com/Vince. 1 month free. Here's your chance to see what it's all about. Get protected. Check it out, sniff around, investigate. 1 month free with Vince's special promotion just for brand members. Aura.com/Vince. Check it out today. I love you. Now here's the next episode. I'm excited. Guys, I don't know what episode this is. We were blessed to have an opportunity to hang out at Impact. We're blessed to have an opportunity to hang out at NWA tonight. And I don't even know, do you still go by Father James Mitchell, Sinister Minister? You've got so many.
Yeah, I go by both now.
You
sort
go
of
by both.
Amalgamating all the years of Gimmicks together.
Yeah, but everybody, I was just saying what a big deal it is, and like a lot of people know you and they love you and they see different things in you, and I've always been so curious to know like where your gimmick started. Like, how did this come about? The devil baby hashtag. Like, I mean, you're so authentic and so passionate about it. Like when the brows, you terrified me. You terrified me in Impact. Like, I was legitimately scared of you. I really was.
Really?
Yeah, I was really scared of you. I thought this guy would never want to talk to me, and like he's scary, and I was scared of all of the guys like in your clan. I was legitimately scared. Like I believe everything. And
my gimmick, basically, when I was, and it's how this all tied together is crazy, but when I was a little kid, I mean like little, just starting to talk, whatever you're getting into, I loved comic books. Right?
Oh.
Comic books, supervillains particularly.
Okay.
I wasn't into Spider-Man and Batman. I was into the Green Goblin and the Joker.
Why?
You know, I don't know, just did. I was always into the concept of the fictional character known as the Devil from the first day I saw a can of Underwood deviled ham.
Really?
I opened up a pantry or whatever. I mean, I couldn't have been more than 3 or 4. And there was a little happy devil with the pitchfork.
Yep.
I don't know, something about it just resonated with me. Then I liked the classic movie monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, the whole shit and shebang. Well, flash forward, I'd always got in trouble, or I was told that I was a weirdo kid for liking comic books.
By who?
My parents and other kids in the neighborhood. I was just kind of a nerd, really.
Oh.
So then I bumped into pro wrestling by accident through a kid I met who was beating me up, and he introduced me to the world of wrestling. But I saw it And suddenly it was like, wait a minute. This is like the 1966 Adam West Batman meets comic books, meets, Frankenstein and the Wolfman. And it was all these things. I mean, if you look at it, was like a live action comic book with monsters,
Wow.
And it became a lifelong passion of mine. I basically lied, conned, and swindled my way into the business. We don't have enough time to go into that. But I was a complete outsider at a time when getting into wrestling was like trying to break into the mafia.
So was Vince Russo, same thing.
It was
lied.
Crazy. Yeah,
same thing.
Bullshit your way in somehow. I did it because I had a better vocabulary than the lower rung outlaw mud show stuff I was conning my way into. You know what I mean?
But what's conning when you're great at what you do?
Well, I mean, I lied. Where have you been? Who trained you? That kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I would do enough research
to pick dead people.
To where people would think, oh, this kid knows what he's talking about. And I was just completely lying. I would just listen to what other people said and repeat it, and name dropping, I guess you would call it. And I didn't know any of these people. So anyhow, but once I got in, it was just a great platform to do what I'd been doing since I was a kid, which is just what do kids call it these days? Cosplay.
Isn't it crazy?
Cosplaying a supervillain.
And now it's just like everybody's doing it. Not what you're doing,
right,
but like
but
it's normalized now.
Comic books, you want to talk about the quickest way to not get a girl?
Really?
When you're in school, in the 70s, late 60s, 70s, into the 80s, comic books were completely uncool. Girls had no interest in them. And generally, the comic book guys weren't ladies' men and whatnot, So it's weird. I walked into a comic book. I don't follow comics now. I'll more read about the history of them, that kind of stuff, because it's part of my DNA.
Yeah.
But you look at all these conventions they have now, and Dragon Con and all this stuff. What a great place to meet girls. You know what I mean?
Now it is.
They're hot.
Yeah, no.
And they're into it.
Yeah.
And if you walk into a comic book store now, the gorgeous women, they're in there. Where were you when I was in, 5th grade?
And you know what I think that is the internet. I think it's social media, because I remember I had a magazine that I started. I wanted to be like Oprah or Oprah Winfrey. This was maybe 10 years ago. It was called Golden. And people were submitting things for cosplay, and I didn't understand what this cosplay was. It wasn't as popular or normalized as it is now. And then you see not the cosplay so much that I'm talking about online, but you see all of these forums and all of these groups of people showing how to make the costumes and now the people that make the costumes and the foam and the fire and all this stuff, now they've got classes and they teach online on this is how you make a wing, and this is how you make a this and that, and they're hot chicks teaching all this stuff. It's there's the women, but it's coming from a really interesting place and brand. And then of course there's all their affiliate links for it. This is the kind of glue that I use for making. But I know so many girls and guys that are so into the building of the sets and the costuming, and I love seeing that.
Unbelievable the stuff.
It's over the top.
What I would see from comic book conventions, when they'd show clips of it, was very primitive compared to what they do now.
It's
now they have people who dress up like giant Hulks and the complete Iron Man outfit.
And there's schematic. No, there's schematics for it now.
It can't be cheap.
No, it's not. And
to put this stuff together.
Time, but it's very
labor of love.
People are passionate about it. People are passionate about it. So you were. You don't have to say, I don't want to know your age. I want to know about where you were in your life when you started bullshitting your way into wrestling, and what was the level then? Was it indie wrestling? Was it?
Oh yeah.
Was it?
I was. You know my age. I'm 56, so I was probably. When I was about 19, I started. In the old days, you'd go to the library.
The card catalog.
Look up microfilm, microfiche. So look in the back of wrestling magazines
microfiche.
and have a vague idea of where the wrestling promotions existed.
Okay.
You know? So, you know, Vern Gagne's AWA was in Minnesota. And Don Owen was in Portland, but then I would spend hours in the library going through microfiche, you know, overshooting the runway, and you'd have to keep, you know, you'd zip it. For those of you who don't know, you'd put this cartridge in, and it was basically photographs of newspapers or whatever, and it would just zip by like a bullet train, you know, and it was like the luck of the draw that you stop at the right time. But I would spend hours and hours and hours trying to find phone numbers of these places. Then, with no experience whatsoever, well, first I would just call people. Hi, I want to be a wrestler. Well, who trained you? Joe Blow. Well, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Because it was a very closed business.
Yep.
Couple years, around 1986, 87, I started making, I guess, MTV used to call them basement tapes, you know, so I just cut a promo in front of my kitchen sink.
Okay.
Not knowing anything about wrestling, you know. I mean, I'd been a fan forever, but I didn't understand the psychology of how things were, why you did things. Mm-hmm. You don't just get on a camera and start yelling because it's cool, but that's what I was doing.
What do you thought it was?
Yeah, so...
Which is more than I knew when I first got into wrestling. I didn't know what the hell was going on, so...
But you know what, let's go to that. Okay, so when I broke into wrestling, we kind of had something in common. We both were on the deep end of the swimming pool. I knowingly threw myself in because I knew I was lying.
Okay.
And I threw myself in the deep end and had to swim myself out. You got thrown into the deep end of the swimming pool. Mitch talked a little bit about your early days in TNA.
Yeah.
And you had told me that, you know, you didn't know what you were doing or whatever. And the truth is you didn't, but they also never taught you anything. Now, I remember back in the day, Jerry Jarrett, who's Jeff Jarrett's dad, his big thing was he wanted a lot of natural reactions.
Okay.
So he would do things, he would surprise us.
Sure.
He'd do angles where somebody would jump in the ring and you didn't know about it, and you better figure it out.
Yep.
Okay. Now, the smack on you, because obviously you're a gorgeous, well-spoken woman.
Appreciate that.
But you'd never been around wrestling. So, if you did an interview with somebody, the guys would get mad because you didn't react the way somebody who was in on the con would. So you would laugh where you shouldn't laugh, because that's what a normal person does when they're not thrown into the middle of carny bullshit. You know what I mean? Or you would make a face like, what?
Yeah.
Right? Whereas, you know, if you're a pro wrestling broadcaster, you go, yes, that's the way it goes. You know what I mean? You actually reacted naturally the way you should.
I was disgusted.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That
Yeah.
I get it. Why didn't she put over my great thing? Well, if you take yourself out of the wrestling bubble and look at it, that's exactly the same face that everyone would make, because they'd be like, who is this asshole standing next to me in the bar talking this way? You know what I mean? Real people don't speak that way, don't behave that way in general.
When people had a really good promo, though, and when people were legitimate, like I just told you, I was legitimately scared of you. When somebody had something that I believed, I responded with respect, and was like, when somebody was jerking off in a trash can, I was like, what is this? Or when the cups, or I was like confused, like, or when they were talking about my vagina, like, I mean, they just sprung that one on me. I wasn't expecting somebody to talk about my pink lips, and I was like, huh? Like, what? Like, that was real reactions, but that's what Vince was a lot like Jerry, and they wanted real reactions, and they got it.
And they were, in those early days, they were particularly sophomoric and juvenile with their humor.
But in my defense, I always asked, what should I be doing? And it'd be like, I'll just figure it out. There was no direction.
Right, that's what I mean. You were thrown into this deep into the swimming pool.
So you're making calls saying, I want to be a wrestler, and I was trained by Joe Blow, and this is when you were at 19, you said?
19, 20, 21, that era.
Okay. What did you want to do before that?
Be a rock star.
Okay. And play what? Sing?
I'm a singer.
Well, yeah.
It would be gilding the lily to say that I'm a singer. You could call me a song stylist.
Okay. Fair enough. But entertainment is in your blood.
Yes, but I was a great front man. But I really had no musical talent at all. And I started getting over in my bar band gigs by behaving like a wrestler. So whereas everybody else, and this has been I believe this in any form of entertainment, be the opposite of what everyone else is doing, because then you're going to stand out. If everybody screams, then you whisper. If everybody whispers, you scream.
Smart point.
If everybody's blue, well, then you be yellow. You know what I mean?
No.
Don't follow trends, start them.
Smart.
So when in the 80s metal, every band was the same. I mean, and every cover band was just the same different levels of the same bullshit. And they all said the same things. We're going to take a short pause for a sanitary cause and tip your bartender or else, whatever
It still is that way.
whatever the catchphrases were, and it was all lame. And
Keep talking. I'm gonna check the cameras.
I got aggravated, drunk, and I started doing like Ric Flair and Roddy Piper kind of performance art, and getting into arguments with the rednecks
Right.
and stuff in the bar.
Yes.
And I became very combative, however you say that. And one of the places I was working at, there was a jobber. For those of you who don't know, a jobber is what we now, in the politically correct age, is called enhancement talent, a guy who's paid to lose to make others look good. But his family owned this bar I was at. And I got into a situation with a rival band person. I slung a potted plant around and let go of it, and it knocked over a bunch of bikers' drinks, and it hit him in the face. And it was almost a riot that broke out. And the guy came from the back, and he was going, dude, you got a lot of heat. He took me in the back. He's going, dude, you got a lot of heat. Man, you got so much heat. I don't know what any of this carny talk is. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Dude, you got a lot of heat. I'm like, what's wrong? Do I smell funny? I didn't know that heat meant you make people mad. And so he was kind of a conduit to try to break in. And, it was just a bunch of ass kissing and networking, I guess you'd call it. Shake a hand that introduces you to a bigger hand. Mm-hmm. And the first demo tape I ever put together, I was the Reverend Jimmy Ray Snake Handler from the Church of Wrestling Unification, who also ran the world's biggest alcohol modeling and pornographic video service, and it was known as Love Brokers Incorporated or something like that.
Okay.
So I did like a 20-minute long, again knowing nothing about it, 20-minute long promo. And I looked cool. I looked like David Lee Roth back in the day, kind of. The hair and the whole shit, and I weighed about 120 pounds. And I sent it to the verified, legit promoters that I'd finally dug up. And so many of them just cursed me out, for being profane. And you don't know anything about wrestling, but one who did was Gene Anderson from the famous Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Ole and Gene Anderson, which the Arn Anderson legacy is part of that. He was working in the office, semi-retired from the ring, and I got a phone call at the record store I worked at, and they said, Jimmy, there's some guy named Gene Anderson on the phone, and I about had a heart, because nobody ever called me back, or if I called them, they just hung up on me immediately, He gave me a number. He goes, Jimmy, Gene Anderson. He goes, you got the gift of gab. He goes, you're a great mouthpiece, but you don't know shit about. You'd make a good preacher or a porn star, but you don't know shit about wrestling. He goes, but you got talent, so I'll give you some names of some people to send tapes to, and he gave me some names of some lower rung TV wrestling programs that were running in late '80s. And they all said, we can't put you on here, because you're vulgar and you're blasphemous. But this was also the time when all the evangelists were getting in trouble. This all kind of ties into what would eventually become Sinister Minister stuff. I just really weaved a lot of things that I was fascinated by into what eventually became the old cranky bastard.
I think it's brilliant. And I think that I think people are doing a good job these days, but I just don't think things the way that they are in professional wrestling across the board are as thought out as your story is or how things used to be. I think it's just real swipe left, swipe right, Instagram thing. It's so, I don't know, I just don't think there's as much thought that goes into it.
No, a lot of things are booked like in 2 and 3 and 4 week cycles, which is the company I'm working for now, NWA, which is Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins resurrected the National Wrestling Alliance, which had been, for all intents and purposes, defunct for several years. It existed as a brand, but kind of a shelved brand. And he's brought back the studio wrestling concept. If you watched, most wrestling was studio wrestling up until Vince McMahon took over. It was a much more intimate atmosphere, but the writing that he does, I was talking to Austin Idol, who's a manager on the show, managing Scion and Tyrus on NWA Powerrr. They just now, a year later, have paid off on a story they started when I started here a year ago. Excuse me. So that's what kind of long-term storytelling they have.
Oh,
they actually
wow.
have this planned out
Yeah.
that far in advance
Yeah.
that just a year later,
Interesting.
a seed they planted gets paid off. You know, there's a payoff for it. And there's a learning curve. You have to re-educate the audience. But the thing that's fun with the NWA crowds is they don't run the asylum. You know, they come and they boo the bad guys and they cheer the good guys. And it's not because they're doing it because they're corn-pone, uneducated hicks, you know, like the old jokes, you know, what has an IQ of 28 and 3 teeth, the first 3 rows of a wrestling audience, that kind of stuff. No, these are all sharp people. But they love, my take is that they miss what wrestling used to be.
Yeah. Yep.
And they want to help create the ambiance instead of trying to be part of the show, in, you know, as far as taking it over.
Yeah.
The way, like that would happen in Impact with the Asylum and ECW, that would happen in Philly. You know, you crowds get to thinking they run the show if you give them too much.
Yep.
You know, so Billy has been a really great guy to work for. It's an excellent product. So for anybody who remembers the old Gordon Soley days of wrestling on TBS or WTCG, if you even go back that far, it has that kind of vibe. And so he owns all the logos and everything from there. So, you know, you get these Easter eggs, I guess you call it, in there. But they're on Fight Network, FITE, and they have a subscription service. It's $4.99 a month, and you get all the content. So $4.99 a month on Fight, you can sign up for NWA. And I believe if you pay $50 a year in advance, it includes all the pay-per-views built into it. So, but yeah, it's a great product, and I would urge anybody who likes wrestling. And look, it's not an old school, it's not a throwback promotion, but there are aesthetics about it as far as the way it's presented that will certainly scratch that nostalgia itch, and you've got a great mix of legendary veterans from the NWA's history, blended in with hot new talent. That's really an exciting program to be a part of. So I would advise everybody, if you like old school pro wrestling, check out NWA on Fight. FITE.
What else can we look forward to? We'll wrap this up soon. What else can we look forward to that's coming up in the future for you? You're going to be with NWA for a hot minute, I hope. And are you working on anything else? Or?
Well, you know, I run a DJ and karaoke business in Orlando. At resorts. That's, I mean, you would have to look up my Facebook because that kind of stuff moves around.
You're on Instagram and Twitter.
I am. Yep. My wife kind of handles that for me. I'm a bit of a Luddite on that. And I spend most of my time now being a new dad.
With Mr. Wyatt.
Yes, also known as Hash, short for hashtag Devil Baby. Yeah, so I had a kid really late in life, And that has been an amazing experience. And I've learned a whole new empathy for people. I'd always been the guy that was in the restaurant or on the plane or in the grocery store going, why can't they shut that kid up?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
Going, who brings a kid? Blah, blah. Well, that's really easy to say until you've had one. You know, and you have to protect that thing and have it with you the whole time. So
It's interesting to hear that. It's a softer side of you, you know. Again.
well, you know, look, truthfully, you know, I'm not all sulfur and brimstone. Remember, this whole journey started at heart because I was a sensitive, sappy little nerd kid, and all of this, and early versions of this, that, you know, second grade, third grade, it's all armor, you know.
Interesting words and interesting thought. Who would have ever known? I wished I wouldn't have been so scared of you when I worked with you.
I don't bite.
Everybody, this has been Goldie's Closet again. I don't know the episode of it, but what a great storyteller. What an intelligent guy that you are. Just so charismatic, and what an honor to be able to find out where you come from and how this all started, and then watch and see what it's blossomed into. So we always end it saying thanks to everybody for subscribing to Russo's Brand, and thank you for listening to Goldie's Closet. Thank you to everybody at Channel Attitude, whatever camera I'm looking at. We want to tell you to stay safe, but always be free, and stay golden. And we clap at the end. Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Stay golden.
Peace.
You've got a friend to show you.
What's up, everyone? It's Goldie, Impact Wrestling, TLC's Cheapskates. Ted Nugent's running wild from him somewhere in the woods. And maybe you've seen our band, Goldy Locks Band. We're out there, we're on tour, but now we're connecting on Cameo. So I want to tell you that I am here to be your humble servant, and that's whatever you need said for you, for a friend, a shout out, a golden shout out, you name it, here and on it. Now, just reminding you, keep it classy, keep it cool, and keep it above the belt. But I want to offer you something a little bit different. Just remember, if I'm not on the road and I've got access to these next beauties, we can always have
Da-da-da-dum.
want to make this the most amazing experience for you ever, because you deserve it, your friends deserve it, your loved ones deserve it. And just remember, I can sing you a few lines of a song. It can be from anywhere, like it can be from Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or it could be near, far, wherever you are. It could even be on a highway to hell. It can even be from there.
Oh, and keep in mind, not all requests are the same. Maybe your motivation comes with a harder edge. Maybe you need a more jagged little pill. There's nothing that I love more than playing the heel. So if you need your message delivered with more, what's the word I'm looking for? Intention? Please specify.
Can't wait to connect with you on Cameo. Thanks so much for being here. Stay golden.